Hello, I'm Doug, and welcome to the Krewe of Japan podcast, a weekly podcast where we take you on audio journeys through Japanese culture.
This time on Krewe of Japan podcast.
Welcome back to the podcast. Ichiro Suzuki, Shohei Ohtani, Yu Darvish, Yoshinobu Yamamoto, Hideki Matsui, both past and present. These are some of the biggest names who have built cultural bridges connecting Japan to professional baseball in the United States. They've all left their stamp on the game, with some still having their story written. And for onlookers of Major League Baseball, it's easy to focus on what happens on the field. But behind the scenes, there's a lot of work being done by players who want to find ways to give back to cities they play in, the places they're from, and the communities that help shape who they are. The MLB Players Trust exists to help make that happen. The Players Trust is the charitable arm of the MLB Players Association, and it acts as the vehicle for players to turn personal values and experiences into real impact. That can mean supporting local communities in the United States, but it also extends internationally, including meaningful and growing work connected to Japan. In this episode, we are so fortunate to be joined by Amy Hever, Executive Director of the MLB Players Trust, and Chris Capuano, former MLB pitcher, Senior Director of Strategy and Operations for the MLB Players Association, and Chair of the Board of Trustees for the Players Trust. Together with Amy and Chris, we explore how the Players Trust works.
It exists to really foster a culture of philanthropy among our player groups and supports them in their individual philanthropic causes, which you can imagine are very diverse. They come from all over the world.
How players help guide its mission.
Kyle Higashioka, who is currently with the Texas Rangers, during one of his road trips to Washington, D.C., we had an opportunity to work with him as well as the National Museum of the U.S. Army, the National Veterans Network, to present him with the Congressional Gold Medal. And this medal was presented to him on behalf of his grandfather's service in the 442.
How initiatives tied to Japan ranging from youth education programs to cultural exchange fit into that larger picture.
The STEM League is actually a great example of a program that has gotten some traction in Japan at the start of 2025. So we'll be returning to Japan in just a few weeks to host a STEM League tournament.
And so much more. This conversation isn't about branding or headlines. It's about players that use their platform thoughtfully and how baseball can create connections within their own local communities and even abroad that last way longer than 9 innings. So let's jump into the episode. Let's go. Thinking about finally learning Japanese, but worried you'll end up just mumbling arigato or konnichiwa forever? Don't worry, NewOrleansJapaneseLessons.com has you covered. Classes are led by Romy Sensei, a native Japanese speaker with over 20 years of teaching experience. She's been teaching online since before it was trendy. 2014, baby! Plus, her classes are super small, 6 people max, so you'll actually get to speak and get real feedback, not just sit there quietly wondering if you're butchering the word ramen. Romy Sensei's lived in New Orleans for over 15 years, and personal friends of mine have taken her classes. They seriously rave about how fun, clear, and downright awesome she is. Why keep telling yourself, I'll start learning next week in English, when you could just say it in Japanese and actually follow through with it at the same time? Check out NewOrleansJapaneseLessons.com, that's lessons with an S, and get started today. Are you new to the Krewe? Yokoso! We hope you enjoy this episode. If you like what you hear today, then you'll really love our back catalog of episodes from earlier this season and previous seasons. We've had some incredible guests, like Dr. Kate Kitagawa of JAXA blasting off a conversation on the Japanese space program, castle expert William DeLong mapping out Japanese castles, Godzilla guru Dr. William Tsutsui breaking down the evolution of Godzilla, and so much more. After you finish up this episode, hit that subscribe button or follow or whatever it is, and get notified when new episodes come out. Then while you wait for the new episode to drop, play catch up with the Krewe. But before you do any of that, let's dive into today's episode. All right, so we're back. I'm here with my morning voice because we're recording again in the morning. We've had a couple of these recently. So some episodes my voice will be deeper, others may not. But, I'm working through my coffee and my water. So bear with me here. I have Jennifer with me. Hey, Jennifer.
Of course.
And we have actually 2 guests today. We have Amy Hever and we have Chris Capuano, both of which work for the MLB Players Trust. So I want to welcome them and allow them to briefly introduce themselves. So Amy or Chris, whoever wants to go first.
So thanks so much for having me on the show. My name is Chris Capuano. I am a former Major League Baseball player. I played in the big leagues from 2003 to 2016 with 6 teams, so I had stops around the league. After I was done with my playing career, I went back to business school and ultimately joined the Major League Baseball Players Association, which is the union that represents all major and minor league baseball players. I joined on staff in 2019. So I've been there for about 6.5 years. And I also serve as chair of the board of trustees for the Players Trust, which is the philanthropic arm of the Major League Baseball Players Association, really the official charity of all players. And so that's a little bit of my background. I was very involved in the trust as a player, going all the way back to about 2003, 2004 or so. And so it's wonderful to continue to work with smart folks like Amy and all of our players through the Players Trust.
Awesome. Well, welcome to the podcast.
And Amy Hever, as Chris alluded to, I have this great opportunity to serve as the executive director for the Players Trust. As Chris mentioned, we are the official nonprofit associated with the Major League Baseball Players Association.
All right. Well, Amy, welcome. We've chatted quite a bit before this call, so we've got to know each other a little bit here and there. But Chris, it's nice to meet you for the first time. It's a pleasure to have both of you on board for this episode. One icebreaker we kind of do before we jump into the topic of the day is we're a New Orleans-based podcast, so we always have a New Orleans icebreaker. So have either of you been to New Orleans before? If you have, what's your favorite memory? But if you haven't, what do you think of when you hear New Orleans?
You want to take that one first, Amy?
Sure. Happy to go. So the first time I was in New Orleans, actually the only time, was about 10 years ago on behalf of the Smithsonian Asian Pacific American Center and the National Veterans Network. We were attending an event that was being put on by the World War II Museum there in New Orleans. And so that's my first opportunity. And actually, I'm having an opportunity to head back there in 2026. I know, of course, that the National Association of Japan American Societies will have its conference there in 26, but also there will be a traveling exhibition, I believe, hitting New Orleans at some point during next year. That's honoring the Nisei soldiers.
Excellent. Well, you have to let us know when you're going to be in town.
Absolutely.
So I'll go second. Mine is going to be a little different. First of all, I love New Orleans. When I think of New Orleans, I think of, jazz music, of course, Bourbon Street. I think of great food. I think of a great blend of cultures, French and just all over Spanish, all over the world, both European and indigenous peoples. So it's a very, very dynamic place. I think that's very unique in America. I think a lot of my earliest memories came from pop culture, right? I was a big film buff. I still am. I love films and books, and some movies like Interview with a Vampire and things that were sort of my first imagining of that area. And then I was fortunate enough to play. A lot of things in my life are through baseball. I've been blessed to play the game and have had a lot of these great experiences, including we'll get to in Japan. But in college, I first played down in the Superdome against LSU and some other teams. And so that was kind of my first experience as a young man back in 1996. When I was playing in the minor leagues in the Arizona Diamondbacks farm system, there was a team there called the New Orleans Zephyrs. And so I remember as a 24, 25-year-old in 2002, 2003, you can imagine the center of my visits was Bourbon Street and that whole culture as a young man. So, when I first came to New Orleans, that was my version of the city. Bourbon Street, what you read about in pop culture and sort of that mix. And then actually, when I came back in 2005, 2006, it happened to be with the Players Trust. And we went down there in the months following Hurricane Katrina and made a really substantial commitment to help rebuild housing, working with a lot of local nonprofits on the ground. And so it has been, it's been great to experience New Orleans pre-Katrina, to be there when they were in that time of extreme need, and then to kind of see how different it was after for a while, and then how it's kind of recovered and evolved.
So did you play for the Zephyrs, or did you just play against them?
I didn't. No. Yes, I played for a team based in Tucson, Arizona, which was the Diamondbacks AAA team. So I just came through to play against them a few times, and I had some friends from LSU, which is always a baseball powerhouse. And I went to a wedding when we escaped Baton Rouge and went down to the big city of New Orleans.
Yeah, I used to go religiously as a kid to the Zephyrs games. So, it's not too far from where both Jen and I both live in that area. So pretty frequently went to the baseball games, when they were the baby kids too. Not as often.
No, I refused.
Jen didn't like. I don't think Jen liked the name very much.
Nope.
But
or the mascot.
I don't know. I thought it was niche. I think
It
minor
was
league,
weird.
you can get away with a lot of fun stuff.
That's right.
All right. Well, to shift gears a little bit, we love to ground this conversation with something a little bit more personal. So can each of you share your connection to Japan and what eventually led to you working for the Major League Baseball Players Trust?
Sure, I'm happy to kick it off. I've had connectivity to Japan, well, I'll say since birth. My mother was Hapa. My grandfather hails from Nagano region, and my great-grandfather on the other side is from the Yokohama area. So for a whole host of reasons, a lot of which just happened to be timing, I've had just, again, a lot of connectivity to Japan and to Japanese American history, art, and culture. So spent some of my formative years going to school in Tokyo and have worked quite a bit of time in the arts and cultural space. Once with the Morikami Museum and Japanese Gardens in South Florida, and then for the Smithsonian Asian Pacific American Center. I think tying it all together here at the Players Trust, because our work is essentially what we do with and on behalf of our players to help them amplify the impact for the causes and the communities that they care about. There's an increasing number of both Japanese players that are playing in MLB and also Japanese American players and Hapa players generally that are playing in the league right now. So it's an opportunity for me to really lean in where I can, best help and support these players to help them really realize what they would like to do off the field.
Wow, that's great.
That's awesome.
And for me, I'll bring it back to pop culture. Like a lot of people in their early 20s, I think my early exposure to Japanese culture was probably through films like The Last Samurai and movies that came out in that early 2000 range. And then playing with the Japanese teammates that I did. The first one was actually Tomo Oka, who I played with in Milwaukee back in 2005, and developed a real friendship with Tomo. And so that's started sort of a personal connection with Japanese culture and their way of thinking and their way of approaching, their craft and life. And very shortly after that, I was an all-star in 2006 with the Milwaukee Brewers. I was selected to play in one of these fantastic exhibition tours where you get a group of MLB all-stars who go to Japan in November after the baseball season, and you play in this series of games. So it's kind of like the best of the States and the best of Japan. And it's a wonderful trip. I remember I took my father on that trip, and it was for 2 weeks. We went to Tokyo, Kyoto, Fukuoka. We got to, in addition to play about 6 or 7 games, tour a lot of Japan. And in preparing for that trip is when I really started to deepen in affinity and, in understanding, at least a surface understanding. I tried to learn the language as well as I could. And I tried to, really make the most of that experience. And so this sort of connection would deepen. I then had a pitching coach named Rick Peterson, who was a pretty well-known, respected coach with the New York Mets, who had coached in Japan. And he handed me a book that was called Zen and the Art of Archery, which is by a guy named Eugene Herrigel, and it's focused obviously on the art of Kyudo. And it changed how I thought about pitching tremendously. Much less about force, more about presence, about becoming the target, trying to hit the target, right? And so this really resonated with me. I read the book over and over again. And that was kind of my first exposure to Japanese philosophy. And then just continuing to build those relationships with teammates and having those conversations rooted in that experience. And then finally, to cap it off, I was selected again in 2014, after a year with the Yankees, to play against the Samurai again in a postseason exhibition, which is where I got to see a 20-year-old Shohei Ohtani, throwing 102 or 103 miles an hour against some major leaguers, some of whom have heard of this Ohtani guy. But then seeing him up close in Sapporo was very memorable. He pitched 4 innings, had a bunch of strikeouts, and the guys were like, yeah, this guy's pretty legit. So
you got the first taste of Ohtani over there before you even broke it out over here, huh?
That's right. Yes, great. And he was impressive even at 20 years old.
Yeah, that's incredible. That's incredible. So having played alongside some like legendary Japanese players when you were in the MLB, do you have any like particular moment or story interacting with a player that really shaped how you thought about like cultural exchange through baseball? Or maybe just something where you were like kind of interacted in something like a personal story, something in the locker room or on a road trip or something like that really got to help you connect with them?
Yeah, I mean, I do. I can't share all the details of the story.
Let's say whatever you can.
It's a little
share,
off color, but I have. Starting with Tomooka, some of the other Japanese players that at least I became very close with and spent a lot of time with were Koji Uehara when I was in Boston. Junichi Tozawa were two great relievers. That was my first time being in a bullpen. And so when you're a bullpen pitcher, you can imagine you have a lot of time to, flick sunflower seeds and get to know each other and kind of mess around in all of the downtime that is America's pastime. Less downtime now, though. Then I was able to play with Ichiro in New York with the Yankees, along with Kuroda and Tanaka, two fantastic pitchers. I have a lot of great memories of just spending time, going out to dinner on the road, getting to know them, having them try to teach me Japanese and me helping them with English in some cases. But Ichiro in particular made a big impression on me because, not only was he just incredible with his routine, with his flexibility, with just the way he approached the game and the grace that he played the game, but he had an incredible sense of humor. And, not everyone knew that I think he spoke English as well as he did, but he did. He understood everything, and I remember we were, he asked me what I like to do, in my spare time or something, and then I asked him as well, and then he I won't tell you what he told me back, but it was one of the funniest things that I'd heard. So I would say it's a lot of little moments, and then in particular, I remember one just stretching, beneath Yankee Stadium and just having a conversation with Ichiro that just left me rolling, and I said I can never tell this story, but this guy's an incredible sense of humor.
Yeah, it feels like when you have that camaraderie and you're just going through it with somebody, it doesn't really matter who they are, where they're from, or their backstory. You're all just going through it, so it really allows those organic bonds to just naturally occur.
Yeah, well, you're hitting on exactly the why behind the trust, right? It's harnessing baseball, the energy, the passion that it is to bridge those cultural gaps and create those connections. And now with Amy's special connection, affinity, my background, the increasing number of players, the incredible level of baseball in Japan in which they approach and play the game. All of those things conspire, I guess, to the theme that we're on the call for.
Speaking of the Players Trust, this is probably the first time some listeners are actually hearing about it. So, at a high level, what is the Major League Baseball Players Trust and how does it fit within the structure of the MLB and the MLB Players Association?
So the Players Trust is the independent nonprofit arm of the Major League Baseball Players Association. Right. So when most people hear MLBPA, they're like, "Oh, you're MLB. It's the same thing, right?" In every sport, there is the league, there is MLB. There's 30 clubs, 30 owners, and then there's a players association as well. And so we exist to represent the defend, protect, defend, and advance the rights of major and minor league players. And that sometimes is public things like the MLB or like the CBA, but it just involves a whole host of things, including WBC, international play. We sort of work together on those things and make sure that players' interests are represented. So the Players Trust, again, is the nonprofit arm of the MLBPA, formed in 1996. It exists to really foster a culture of philanthropy among our player groups and supports them in their individual philanthropic causes, which you can imagine are very diverse. They come from all over the world, a lot of backgrounds, and then harnesses their collective voice really to make an impact through initiatives focused on youth development, youth mentorship, not just baseball and softball, on-field things, but classroom-based programming and things that really make a difference. And of course, being responsive in the moment, when disaster strikes or when there's a real need in the communities, especially where our players call home, the trust is there to help players make an impact.
Great.
Yeah, so you actually kind of touched on our next question a little bit there. You had mentioned that beyond like the traditional philanthropy that goes on, the Players Trust focuses on relationship building, not just with players themselves amongst, within the league, but just their impact in the community, both short-term and long-term, building those lasting bonds wherever they may be playing and connecting them to the causes that they find important to them. How would you describe some examples of the core mission of the Players Trust in terms of strengthening those communities? You touched on some relief efforts in communities where natural disasters hit or in classroom things. But what are some other other types of initiatives that you guys do?
Yeah, happy to jump in on that. I think, in the preceding comments that were made by Chris are super important because he has experienced the Players Trust as a player and now being on the other side as a board member. And so he's had an opportunity to also see how the Players Trust continues to evolve so it can best meet the needs of players and the needs of the communities that we associate ourselves with. So I would say there's so many examples because we are trying to just make sure that we are, like I said, evolving, but just making sure that we can do our best to really amplify the impact and the potential impact that can be made by using a player or players' collective platforms for good. So, one of the programs that we had developed and has been largely informed by the players themselves is a program called MLB Players STEM League. This is a program that was done in partnership with another nonprofit called LearnFresh. LearnFresh is a nonprofit that exists nationally, has a presence internationally, and consists of those who are just experts in the youth education space. And so what this program is essentially is a baseball inspired board game, but it is an educational tool, comes also with a Common Core standardized curriculum. And this program, it features now 50 Major League Baseball players, and students work in teams of two, and they have to draft their hitters, they have to draft their pitchers, they have to take a look at baseline statistics that are featured on these cards that are included in this game and make decisions on what's going to be the most powerful lineup that will score them the most runs. And so this baseball board game think of it as an old school roll the dice game. And it really not only is helping to, yes, reinforce math fundamentals, but it's also really helping to develop leadership skills, life skills, such as what is the importance and value and applications of sportsmanship, of teamwork, of problem solving. So this is a program that we've been able to deploy not only across the United States, but now exists in Latin America. And as of the start of 2025 in Japan, as well as South Korea, and hopefully soon we'll be expanding to other countries across Asia as well. Countries where we have players who are currently in Major League Baseball. So this is an opportunity where by using this program over and over and over, you're hopefully seeing some opportunity to develop skills while also complementing some of the other work that players may be doing in these communities where this program is actually taking place. So one snapshot example of a program that we have that in this moment is being used by over 10,000 students and growing, and really adds a really valuable, important piece to our portfolio.
That sounds awesome. I think my son, he's 9 years old, so I think he would love to do something like that. I don't know if you guys are going to ever expand out to New Orleans. I know we don't have a team here anymore, or minor league team even, but if you do.
Yeah, the answer is absolutely, because it's team agnostic. In other words, this is a program where it can be deployed literally virtually anywhere. This is something that can be also used in a very flexible manner, whether it's during class time in a school setting or out of school time, after school time as well. It's flexible where the game can be played and used as a carrot at the end of, say, a classroom lesson, or it can be something that can be used in concert with the curriculum as well. But we can deploy it literally wherever we find a community that has an interest and may or may not have direct connectivity to a player where he hails from.
Okay. Well, good to know. I might have to, we'll talk about that a little bit later on, maybe offline. But you did talk about how Players Trust is kind of trying to expand beyond the US and reach out to those international markets and provide, for example, the MLB Players STEM League in Japan. What are some other things that are going on outside of the US, specifically in Japan, like the type of engagement and things? I know you mentioned, Chris, that after the seasons, they would have an all-star team go to Japan and kind of interact and play a series against a team of Japanese players. What other types of events are there specifically that the Players Trust is involved with that take place in Japan, but also maybe introducing Japan to American communities?
The STEM League is actually a great example of a program that has gotten some traction in Japan at the start of 2025. So we'll be returning to Japan in just a few weeks to host a STEM League tournament. So think of it in the kind of same vein, almost like a chess tournament. So students from across the Kanto area and actually beyond will be convening in Tokyo, thanks in large part to a sponsor, Abeam. Their headquarters is located in the Yaesu building just outside Tokyo Station. And the students will be convening there. We have a Japanese broadcaster, Yuji Kondo, is going to be serving as our master of ceremonies. And the students will be there to compete for the title of STEM League Champion of Japan. And this is a great experience for them to come and put their competitive skills to the test, along with what they have learned in the sportsmanship as well as teamwork areas. And the winning team, so the winning team of two, will then earn the opportunity to come to the United States, and perhaps for the first time. They'll be coming to Miami in March, where they'll compete for the STEM League Global Championship title, and also have an opportunity to attend the semifinal World Baseball Classic game in Miami as well.
Oh, wow.
It's an example, shall I say, of where we're able to really take advantage of all the hard work that these students have been doing with the STEM League program, convene, compete for the title, and by the way, receive this great cross-cultural opportunity and experience to come to the United States.
That sounds
Wow, that's
fantastic.
amazing.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
great.
Well, the trust often works directly with players to tell meaningful stories and honor heritage. And I remember you talking about like the Japanese American players, Amy. How has the Players Trust worked with Japanese American players to honor their heritage while strengthening US Japan baseball connections?
Yeah, there's been a couple of great examples. I'll share one with Kyle Higashioka, who is currently with the Texas Rangers. And during one of his road trips to Washington, D.C., we had an opportunity to work with him as well as the National Museum of the U.S. Army, the National Veterans Network, to present him with the Congressional Gold Medal. And this medal was presented to him on behalf of his grandfather's service in the 442. So one of the segregated units that served in the Great War. And this was just a tremendous opportunity for him. He even learned a few more facts, I think, about his grandfather's unit in service while he was there and speaking with the curatorial staff, and also received a behind-the-scenes tour of this great museum. So these are examples of experiences that we're able to put together for these players that maybe they wouldn't have had an opportunity to do or have otherwise, at least certainly while involved in their busy playing schedule. So a really great experience for him. The medal was presented by General Eric Shinseki, his former Secretary of Veteran Affairs, and certainly a very highly decorated general, spent multiple decades serving the country. So a really great, amazing experience for Kyle. Experience also went viral in the media. So just giving and raising great awareness for this largely untold story.
Great. Yeah. That's great that y'all are able to help assist with making those connections and making it aware.
Yeah. And also just in general, I think there's a lot of opportunities to share those stories that maybe people weren't familiar with. There was a Go for Broke exhibit that came to the World War II Museum here locally in New Orleans. And I mean, I knew of it. I knew of like the Japanese American internment camps and the units that were made of Japanese Americans. But there was a lot of history and a lot of things that I didn't know that I learned from those type of events. And I think giving someone that has that platform to kind of share that information and really kind of inform people, because a lot of people, if they don't know it or if it's not presented to them, they haven't had the opportunity to learn about it. If they have the chance to, then that does help build like just in general a stronger community and help people relate to one another. So I think that's really great that you guys have been doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. For Kyle, he also supports a lot of military servicemen and women in terms of how he's using his platform for good in other ways. He's engaged quite a bit with the Special Warriors Foundation. So this experience just really created a lot of meaningful connections or dot connections for him, and just really how he was able to create synergies between his personal background, his family story, and how he wants to give back. And to be able to share this, as I mentioned, largely untold story, just with such a wide, broad audience within the baseball and beyond the baseball community. So it's I think, a great example of where we were able to work together to try and amplify awareness as well as impact.
That's incredible. So like we just mentioned, like MLB players have that opportunity to be those cultural ambassadors. They can, having the platform they have, having the, visibility and the notoriety of who they are, they're elevated in the sense that they're baseball players. People recognize them. They're associated to a team, a community. They become this ambassador and they can carry a message with some importance. But how does the Players Trust support players who maybe want to engage with Japan or give back to Japanese or Japanese American communities in meaningful ways? I mean, nowadays, there's a growing population of Japanese players that are coming to the MLB. does the Players Trust help support them in some of the causes that they deem necessary, whether it's directly in Japan or maybe bringing awareness of Japanese culture and traditions to American communities?
Yeah, I think the answer is it's something that will continue to evolve. So we had I'll say a recent opportunity where we worked with Yuki Matsui and Shinosuke Ogasawara, so two players currently in the major league. And so they were able to lend their voice to the STEM League program. And so we actually did a pilot tournament earlier this year. And so they were able to record some messages, give a nod to where they actually hail from. So this was kind of what I would say is some of the first starting foundational pieces for us to demonstrate and show to Japanese players that we're here. We're here to help them. We're here to help them in Japan, whether they want to do something in specifically their hometown, whether they may want to do something in and around the market where they're currently playing. So I would say this is something, as I mentioned, it continues to evolve. And as more and more of our players know that we're here and that we're here as a resource to them, I think, quite frankly, the sky's the limit to see what we do next.
And, with so many initiatives across different countries and communities that you have going on, impact can be hard to quantify. How does the Players Trust measure success with all this?
Yeah, it's a great question. So part of it is in knowing and seeing how the players are engaging with the Players Trust, how they are finding value in working and partnering with us and alongside us. And the other part of it is when you look at a program such as the STEM League that I know we've spoken about, and we have another educational program that also gives us the ability to have great scale in terms of the number of students that are utilizing it. We also have metrics that we are taking a look at that we've acquired in partnership with our educational partners, those that are actually helping to manage and deploy these programs, such things as pre and post testing. So how do students, for example, feel about math before? How do they feel about math afterwards? How are they demonstrating sportsmanship? So these are things that will be shared with their respective teachers in the classroom. So we're able to have a look at what that data is telling us. So that gives us an opportunity to at least have some baseline understanding of how attitudes towards education, attitudes towards lifelong learning may be impacted. And then on the other side of it, we can look at certainly the number of communities and the number of, in this particular case, the number of youth that we have the ability to engage. That's another metric. So there is a really, I would say, quite a number of things as a nonprofit that we're taking a look at. First and foremost is where and how we can best work with and alongside our players to try and reach those communities that they have certainly some affinity towards.
Yeah, I just want to add to what Amy said about measuring success.
Yeah.
For me, from my lens too, it's certainly the depth of engagement matters to me. That's both from a player standpoint. So we want to make sure that as many of our players, engage with the trust, leverage the resources that it has to offer, not just the financial resources that we can direct towards causes, but also storytelling and brand amplification, and really helping them. Almost all players, they've worked hard to get where they are, but they feel really, really fortunate to be able to play this great game, for a living, for as long as they can. And almost all of them, have this desire to really try to give back, to use the platform for good in some way. Right. And so the Players Trust really exists to try to amplify that platform and allow them to do that however they want to do it. They want to, form their own foundation. We'll come alongside and support them. If they just, want low liftings or they care about a cause, maybe something that affects their family, the trust is there to kind of meet them exactly where they're at. So for me, it's the depth of engagement with as many of our players as possible, with the communities that we serve. It's repeat participation by players and repeat engagement, with vendors and partners and sponsors and communities. And supporting sort of lasting initiatives wherever possible, as opposed to kind of one-off approaches.
That's great.
Yeah, and I would say too, like, it's really awesome that you help elevate the players and give them the resources that they necessarily need if there are a cause or things that they really want to pursue or bring visibility to. I mean, I taught English in Japan for 3 years back in 2007. It was elementary school. So a lot of kids, I mean, when I said I was from America, one of the first things they would bring up would be baseball. And, the players, they start listing off players' names and stuff like that. I'd say I'm from Louisiana. I'd say that, and it shows our LA, and they'd be like, LA Dodgers. I'm like, no, not the Dodgers. The Zephyrs. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, so it's really good because I think that there is a connection. There's a high sense of pride that people feel, especially in Japan, like students, but also the adults. I mean, Otani is what he's done in terms of baseball in Japan. It's just the popularity is blown up.
Yeah.
Well, and that one knows no geographical borders either, right? He's done the same thing to American kids, which is truly amazing.
Yeah, I mean, you walk off the plane and it's like Otani, like green tea ads, like as soon as watches, it's like pretty much every other ad is Otani walking down the walkway to immigration. So. So bringing it back to the Players Trust and some of the things that you have going on and other events and initiatives, you have a big one coming up in February, the Playmakers Classic, which from what it sounds like, it's a big fundraising event for your organization. So can you tell us a little bit more about how this event helps amplify the Players Trust global mission and like the work that's being and will be done in Japan?
Yeah, sure. So the Playmakers Classic is, as you mentioned, the signature fundraising event that we hold. And so it's a way to complement the monies that and support and the resources that are already coming in through our players. Our sights are really quite high, meaning that the impact that we want to continue to make certainly is quite lofty because we know that we have the potential to work with these players and work with also the many, many community partners to do a lot of good. So this Playmakers Classic is a way for us to help generate those resources that we need to power the current programming mix that we have, as well as the future programs that we would like to bring into our mix. The event, which I'll certainly ask Chris to speak to as someone who's experienced each and every one of them to date, is something that we take great pride in because we've kind of deconstructed the typical gala model and reconstructed it in a way where we hope it's something that is really not only meaningful, but also super exciting to be a part of and fun to be a part of. So it's 3 hours of nonstop interactive gaming, food and wine and spirit tastings, silent auction, live entertainment. The silent auction is probably the most traditional element you would see with respect to a fundraising event. So as soon as you walk inside the doors of the venue, which it will be held at a place called Warehouse 215 in downtown Phoenix, it's a raw space that we basically re-outfit to look and feel and have the energy, if you will, of a game. So there are going to be spirit tastings that represent the brands of former players, Adrian Gonzalez and Calidad Beers, Drew Storen and Field of Dreams Whiskey, John Jay, former player John Jay and Lo Siento Tequila. And in addition, there'll be a longest drive competition, a virtual golf longest drive competition, a skee ball competition, as well as casino games, all for some pretty serious prizes and bragging rights. We'll have a cigar lounge that's set up outside, as well as demonstrations of the programs that we currently have operating, such as the STEM League. So really a great opportunity to be a part of something that you'll just really enjoy from start to finish, but also be shoulder to shoulder with close to 100 professional baseball players from past to current to aspiring minor league players as well.
Amy did a good job of describing Playmakers, but I'll just add that this takes place again February 18th, so it's right at the start of spring training. It's a really cool and dynamic time out in Phoenix for those who can participate in person and who can be there. You have this major golf tournament called the Waste Management Open, right, which they call the greatest show on grass. It's quite a spectacle. They'll have almost 1 million people over 4 days. And this is sort of in the week following that, right after pitchers and catchers report. So just a great time to be in the Valley. For me, as a former player going, I love to go there and see, again, we had over 100 players there, many current players who are in market for spring training, but also Hall of Famers, as Amy said. And so getting the chance to be with them and interact in that environment, along with another, let's call it 250 or 300, right? So almost 400 people total, business partners, sponsors, just individual donors. it's this great mix because it's kind of like a choose your own adventure evening, right? So you might want to spend a little more time at the casino games or doing the golf long drive thing or doing the wine and spirit tastings or the great food. And there's sort of moments when everyone is brought together, maybe for a quick little message or gathering, or certainly the live entertainment. We've had some great artists perform over the years that kind of brings everyone together. And then you can kind of get back to choosing your own adventure, if you will. And it's not limited to just the event itself, right? So you can participate in the auction, I believe, in the months leading up as well online. There's a lot of great memorabilia experiences. So there's a lot of great ways to connect with playmakers, which now I believe is in its 4th iteration. And we're excited about it.
That sounds like a really good way for players who may not on a daily basis interact with each other, really come together and really make a connection with one another. If for those at least that maybe aren't on the same team or
That's
whatnot.
right. That's why I love it. Yeah. And that's that's you'd be surprised at how enjoyable that is, right? Because you're used to seeing these guys across the field in the other dugout and competing against them, and then you're like, I really wanted to hate you, but you're actually a pretty decent guy, right? So, yeah, it's these great moments.
Sounds like this year is going to be a fun event as well, and wishing you guys the best of luck and success with that event, because it sounds like it's a really cool opportunity for networking. And if you're attending as a non-player, to meet some people that are in the game and really making an impact on the game today. And is it also like a lot of retired players that attend as well?
There's probably in the mix, I don't know if it's 20%, 30%, but there'll be a decent amount of former players. So many of them actually live in that greater Phoenix area, which we've focused. The trust has obviously a presence all over the world, but we also spend a decent amount of time in that greater Phoenix area just because of the density of player population there.
Got it. Okay. That was actually going to be a follow-up. I was like, is there a reason why it's in that one location? Is that it's like kind of a hot spot for it? But it sounds like
yeah, in spring training in MLB, you're either in Florida or you're in Arizona, right? And if you're in Florida, you're sort of spread all around, and it's a little bit difficult to get everyone together. In Arizona, the great thing is half of all of baseball is really congregated in this one greater Phoenix area. So that's kind of the genesis of taking advantage of where our players are concentrated the most, and when excitement for the upcoming season is sort of at its peak in spring training.
Awesome. Well, looking ahead, just in general, bringing it back to baseball and its relationship with not just communities here in the United States, but also like internationally, specifically with Japan. As the relationship with Japan continues to grow, both on and off the field, how do you see the Players Trust shaping the next chapter of U.S.-Japan connection through baseball and community impact? We've already mentioned STEM League and how that's kind of like a foundational building block and only the start, right? It's the very beginning. How do you foresee maybe down the road, like how this is going to evolve over time?
I'll let Amy close it out because she's going to have the game plan. Amy is a master strategist and has done such amazing work to really elevate the trust to a best-in-class nonprofit. I just want to say quickly that certainly the STEM League is something that we're focused on and will continue. And we mentioned that the Players Trust really tries to support all of the individual philanthropic interests of players, right? Through matching grants, through storytelling, through all of that good stuff. But the one thing that all players align on is the importance of the next generation, right? The youth sort of population. And it's about holistic youth mentorship and development. That's what we're trying to do, I think, through the Players Trust. And again, and some of that is teaching the game, at the young levels, baseball, softball, but that's kind of a small portion of it. A lot of it is focused, is classroom-based. It's helping kids develop socio-emotional tools, teamwork skills, confidence, math skills in the case of the STEM League board game, helping them to really become, good people, good citizens, and give them a good shot. So I think there's a lot of areas that I foresee the trust trying to align in Japan, because I know, obviously the youth, the next gen, is of critical importance. A lot of players who play in the MPB are care about that. So I could see us leaning in further beyond the STEM League in that area. And a lot of it is an extension of personal relationships finally, right? So as we have relationships with players like Otani and other Japanese-born players, what they care about and what they're interested in is sort of, a doorway for the trust to go in and try to really make an impact.
I'll add that the story isn't fully written just yet. So for us, we're still learning quite a bit. Well, the fortunate thing for us is that collectively, meaning across our staff of the Players Trust, as well as our trust leadership and the players more broadly, we bring to the plate certainly a large amount or years of experience working cross-culturally and to use the power of sport for good. Both, literally, as Chris said, in how we show up in programs or perhaps episodic events on the field, but how we think outside the box and get innovative and translate the power of sport in a way that youth, families, whomever the audience may be for the program that we are standing up can enjoy and use to help thrive in some way. So we're pounding pavement and trying to build the brand of the Players Trust and the work that we have done thus far, what our objectives are in using and working with our players and using the sport for good. So as of the time of recording this podcast, we're actually headed to Atlanta tomorrow to take part in Japan America Society of Atlanta's Bonenkai. And that's going to be yet another opportunity for us to meet with Japan America leadership, to meet with some of the many other corporate representatives and give them a glimpse of what work we have done already and what we have planned in the most immediate months ahead. And that's one example. We also are members of the U.S.-Japan Council, and we also are continuously trying to build relationships both within the Japanese and the Japanese-American, shall I say, broader leadership, both on the government side as well as in the corporate space. So in answer of, as I said, that we're still really learning where it is that we can find those leverage points so that we can continuously expand our work and most importantly, the impact that we can have.
Excellent. Well, again, safe travels tomorrow to Atlanta. But maybe that kind of leads into our outro, where we give you the opportunity to let people know where they could find out more information or if they want to follow the Players Trust and what you guys are doing. What are maybe your social media or your website or anything else you want to let people know so that way if they are interested in learning more or following you guys, where they can find you?
Yeah, absolutely. Our website is playerstrust.org. So that's definitely the first place that we would point folks to. And we work in partnership with our Major League Baseball Players Association on our social presence. So handle is at MLBPA. So that's MLBPA for Players Association.
Awesome.
Nice.
All right. Well, thank you both for coming on. First of all, Amy, thank you for reaching out to us about this and wanting to share some of this information. Again, for both Jen and I, we weren't really familiar with Players Trust and what you guys do. So it was really cool to learn about all of the endeavors that you guys partake in. And again, like I'm going to reach out to you about that STEM league because I think my son's school might be interested in that. But yeah, thank you both. And Chris, it was a pleasure talking with you and hearing your side as a player and how you were interacting with the Players Trust as a player, but now as an executive and doing everything that way. So really, really awesome to hear that story.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be with you guys this morning.
Thank you very much.
And that's a wrap on today's episode. Before we finish, a big thank you to Amy Hever and Chris Capuano of the MLB Players Trust for joining us today and for sharing with us all of the incredible work that they've been doing behind the scenes to help players give back to communities in meaningful ways. If there's one takeaway from this conversation, it's that baseball's impact doesn't stop at the final out. Through the Players Trust, athletes are able to turn personal experiences and connections, whether those be local or international, including Japan, into real, lasting community impact. If you want to learn more about the Players Trust and the initiatives we talked about today, or more about the Playmakers Classic, you can visit trust.mlbplayers.com to explore their mission, programs, and upcoming events. And as always, thank you for tuning into the Krewe Japan podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to follow and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. If you have an extra few seconds to spare, leave us a rating and review, or even just share this episode with your bestie or a stranger. We'll take whatever we can get. Every single one of those 5-star ratings and reviews helps others discover Krewe of Japan and join our global crew. Any and all support is so incredibly appreciated. Are you familiar with the Players Trust and their mission? Share with us on social media. Blue Sky, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, X. Just search Krewe of Japan podcast to stay in the loop with future episodes, upcoming Japan Society events, and other Japan-related content. That's KREWEOFJAPAN, Krewe of Japan. Or maybe you want to reach out directly. Send us an email at kreweofjapanpodcast@gmail.com. We'd really love to hear from you. But that's it for today. Until next time. Looking to start your own podcast and don't know what platform to use? Tell me about it. When we started the Krewe of Japan podcast, we tried a bunch of the big name recording platforms, but always came back to the one we're still currently using to this day, Zencastr. Zencastr is now the all-in-one solution making podcasting easy. In addition to its high audio and video quality for podcast production, Zencastr provides a full suite of production tools to record, produce, and publish studio quality content from the comfort of your home. Just log in through your browser and start recording. It's that simple. For us, we simply send out links to our guests and they join the lobby. But before you know it, it's all done and you have your studio quality audio and up to 4K video right there ready for you, right when you finish. The best part is having their multi-layered backups to ensure that your recordings are in the highest quality, regardless of anyone's internet connection stability. With Zencastr's all-in-one podcasting platform, you can create your podcasts in one place and distribute to all the major destinations. It's really that easy. Go to zencastr.com/pricing and use our code Krewe of Japan, KREWEOFJAPAN, and you'll get 30% off your first month of any Zencastr paid plan. We want you to have the same easy experiences we do for all of our podcasting and content needs. It's your time to share your story.